Welcome back to Let's Talk Race and Mile. I'm your host, Harrison Paul, and today we're going to talk about the fact that Rishi Sunak is now sped up the process of sending migrants to Rwanda. There's not much to say on only the fact that this is totally lawless. And it really frustrates me when I understand that the West actually sits on Africa's wealth. They have been exploiting Africa for many, many years and weaponizing contracts that really are colonial contracts, weaponizing deals and weaponizing, the world trade rules and stuff that are keeping Africa really in chains. It frustrates me when I think about Africans thinking it's only our fault. It just shows me these type of Africans do not understand what the world organizations really look like, world trade organizations, what the UN look like, what the EU look like, what these kind of deals look like. I try so much to give Africans understanding about what way we are actually really, our hands are tied in the you know what I mean, in the world stage, in the big ring, our hands are really, really tied. I'm actually going to play one of my favorite clips of Dr. Arikana, where she quickly explains the world trade rules, really, and how they've kept Africa tied down for quite some time. So let's watch this.
IMF, World Bank, all other institutions, they make African countries jump through hoops. Loans will never be able to pay. The US, when they borrow money, they're getting it in 1.5, 1.9 interest rate. Africans, when they get the same amount of money, they're paying 9, 10%. The people who don't need a break, they get a break. The ones who need a break, they don't get a break. The sheer survival of the World Bank, IMF, is based on the fact that African countries and many other developing countries do not succeed. Their success is based on our failure. That has to change. And guess who can make that change? We, the children of Africa, we, the Africans, are the ones who have to say, we know your game now. Enough is enough. We're not.
And another point that Dr. Arikana has mentioned a lot that she's not mentioned in this clip is the fact that a lot of our countries are not able to manufacture the things in which we produce, right? If you think about the fact that we have cocoa, we have all sorts of these things, we have minerals, we have, you name it. They have worked things in such a way that, and I'll use Swiss chocolate, for example. How is Swiss chocolate imported from Switzerland, yet they get their cocoa from us? They do this in such a way where, listen, they could be creating jobs. Jobs could be created in Africa. We could have it in a way that any cocoa that has to leave Africa must first be manufactured in Africa. That means that you have to build your headquarters or manufacturing companies, whatever you call it, in that place in which you're getting the cocoa from. That creates jobs. Not only that, that means you would have to then finance a good enough living standards for the people who live in those areas. I'll give you another example. Let's take Shell, for example. Shell PLC. That is a British multinational that sells oil. They get their oil from Nigeria. Now, how is it now that we are sending people back on boats who come from Nigeria to Rwanda? Yet, in these places, let me give you an example. In the places where they get oil, right, where they extract the oil, there are major oil spills, and they leave a mess there. They leave toxic, toxicity in the air, toxicity in the land, that people who live amongst those places actually now begin to get cancer and begin to get diseases and die from the fact that this oil, extraction happens in these areas. And the point that I'm trying to say is, how do we arrive at a place where they are not held accountable for most of these crimes? They're never held accountable for these crimes, nor do they even, fund money to really pump money into these areas, or better yet, create jobs, real infrastructure for the fact that you're getting your oil from these areas. Guys, I can go on about the crimes that happen in Africa, and now we turn over the leaf and you tell me that you guys want to actually send people to Rwanda when people are escaping Nigeria? Let me tell you what I wanted to make this video about today. I wanted to make this video about there is nothing more dangerous than someone who is climbing up the white supremacy ladder. There is nothing more dangerous than a person of color who is climbing the white supremacy ladder. He will step on whoever and whatever in order to get there. He has to prove to the kings and queens of white supremacy that he has no ties to anybody of color. That he has absolutely no ties to anybody of color. And a lot of the times I have black people, or we have people who say, you know what, I'm not worried about the white man anymore because I should be more afraid of my brother and my sister. I should be more afraid of black people. We tear each other down. While you are partly right, you must understand that there is nothing more dangerous than a black person who is trying to climb up the ladder, or a white person who is trying to climb up the ladder. I understand this frustration with our communities because we feel like we are now our worst enemies. We are now our own worst enemies. I need you to understand that a wise person, or rather a simple person, fights people. A wise person fights the system that creates this atmosphere where brown and black people feel like we have to step on each other in order to please the pyramid. The more and more you begin to study the pyramid, the more and more you begin to understand white supremacy, you understand that there is no point. It's a losing battle. For as long as white supremacy is still intact, for as long as it's still a system, you are fighting an endless battle by fighting your brother or sister who knows that the best way to move up is to become a Candace Owens. Who knows the best way to get up is to become a Rishi Sunak. You are lying if you are saying as a black person that you have never found yourself compromising who you are in order to move forward in a white company. I have a lot of people who say to me, you know, this is what we got to do. You got to play the game. This is what we've been taught. We've been taught that we have to play the game regardless of integrity. And even better yet, the level of, or rather the meaning of integrity has shifted for us as people of color. It means taking rubbish. It means not standing on truth. And it means having less empathy. So you become a less empathetic person because you believe it is the birthright of the black or brown person to struggle. That his life actually has to equal the struggle. So if he wants to complain about a little bit of struggle, or what you would call a little bit, then he is not understanding this is how life works. So then you become someone who's difficult because you don't believe that people should be born into a level of struggle. Then we have the idea of get it how you live, basically. It frustrates me when we think of the desperation. These people are obviously in a major desperate state. And if we are now taking people and we are now throwing them back into Rwanda, a place that has proved when we, in regards to Congo and all that kind of stuff, that they are not people who either move with integrity. Now, when I say that, I'm saying that in a way to say they are not able to move in a way of freedom, basically. Because I don't believe, even when I look at the deal in itself, I don't see how this is a deal that benefits Rwanda. I think this is a clear indication of weakness. There is absolutely no way in the long run, if Kagame really thinks that this is a great idea for the country, I don't care if the money is, I don't even think he is dumb enough to believe that the money that he's getting right now is good enough for the damage that this could cause. The point I want to say is, even when we think about people who are coming here on boats, majority of them want to come to work. There is a reason people are leaving Africa. There is a reason for opportunity, for work, for other different things. And if Rwanda generally was a place that was fruitful in terms of job, in terms of infrastructure, wouldn't everybody be trying to go there in the first place? So you're dumping people to a place where they definitely, if you think, I know Europe does not have the capacity, you can only imagine what Rwanda has in terms of facilitating jobs, facilitating work, facilitating the infrastructure for people to grow and make the money that they have come for economic gain, or even some fleeing for war reasons. And it frustrates me to understand that the wars that are being caused are by the European Union. I can actually put some evidence in here for you guys to see it.
So it behooves us to bring the diaspora together. Let them understand what is really going on in our Africa. Diaspora are not going home. Diaspora are angry about Africa because they are not understanding the root cause of why Africa is where it is today. They think getting rid of a president will take care of the problem. Far from it. That president is just going to be replaced by another one who is going to equally suffer from the same difficult environment to work in. So let's look at an Africa that must be free to take care of herself, an Africa that's free from exploitation from outsiders. The multinationals who are stealing from Africa every day in broad daylight. I use an example of the DRC. If you ever fly very low over the DRC, you'll see tarmacs in the jungle. You'll see 747s flying into DRC, picking up minerals and flying right out. The same multinationals are responsible for arming young people and giving them MK-16s. Because why? Their satellites in the skies are telling them where that village is. There are lots of diamonds. So what do? Arm young people, drag them up, and send them to go chop off a few heads. The rest of the village runs away, so they come behind and do their illegal mining. We black people must understand what is really going on. Because what we are shown instead is, oh, look at those Africans killing each other. There are some serious games that have been played in Africa for far too long. And once we understand that, we can strategize as to how we can begin to bring the difference and bring the change that Africa needs. And that change can only come if the African diaspora are united.
So you're telling me the wars that people are fleeing from, the instability people are fleeing from, and then on top of that, let's take oil for an example. Oil is being taken from Africa. And I can guarantee you, Nigeria to be specific, it is not a fair deal. It is never a fair deal when it comes to Africa. The whole benefit, if you think this country is barely standing, if you think Europe is barely standing, do you think they will really stand if they were to give Africa the resources like oil for the real price they should be giving Africa? These deals we are seeing today are only a continuation of colonization. They exploit these raw minerals when they could be doing so much more for the areas. They could be making sure they build infrastructure from the place they're extracting oil. They could be making sure they do it for other countries they extract oil from. They do it for other places. And then people are now dying. Then wars are caused. They cause instability so they can continue to take from these places. And then you think it is simply down to the corruption of an African leader. Your African leader has very little room to really make any decisions or have any power. Because in the ring, the big rocks boxing ring, which is the EU, the World Trade Organization, and all of these UN, they do not have a voice big enough. They do not have a say big enough. And these people work together against Africa. So what frustrates me is that we have this, and then Europe want to use a brown person to do the most wickedest act to show how cruel and how mean he can be. Rishi Sunak then, and even the foreign secretary, they use black and brown people to show how cruel they are willing to be. And I just wanted to underline, guys, please, 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 let us not underestimate what a black and brown person is willing to do to climb the ladder. We have now considered that righteousness. We have now considered the dynamic of life righteousness. This unfortunate truth that we all have come to understand and live with, that you must sacrifice a slight bit of your integrity in order to grow in white society. in order to grow in the imperialist world that he's created. This happens on a day-to-day basis, and it happens in a systematic basis. It happens in our self-determination. It happens within our identity. How can you ask me if Rishi Sunak truly, truly, truly is a man of integrity? Where during his reign at all has he said and shown to relate to anybody of Indian descent? Where has he shown to say, I understand your struggle. I understand what it could have been. I too, once or twice in my day, have gone through what it is like to be discriminated against. If he's really doing things to be fair, where has he shown balance that, listen, I am going to identify to the struggle of someone who does come in, who does face these hurdles? And then I see that this creates a hostility amongst ourselves. So now the imperialist has less of a job to do, because now the robot, which is us, the robot he's implanted in every black and brown person, is doing the majority of the work. So you're asking yourself, where is the racism? Where is the racism? I want to try to break this down for you guys to understand. You ever get around those people who are energy suckers? You ever get around those people who don't really have to say much, who can say a whole lot, who can suck energy with saying very little? This is white supremacy. They, in this very day and age, have to say not as much as they used to say. And when they do want to say something, they know they can find a suicide bomber, which is a black and brown person, who will use himself, understanding the signal, as a radicalized version of what a lot of them are feeling. And then what work really does he have to do to implement the white supremacist mentality or systems that they believe in? And I just wanted to encourage anybody watching this video today to understand that you spend a lot of time wondering, why are we like this as black people? Why do we hate each other? Why are we sometimes our own worst enemy? Why do we bash each other? I need you to understand, you waste unnecessary time fighting prisoners to the system, prisoners to this capitalist imperialist system and how it operates, and this hierarchy and this patriarchy. You waste time and energy. You think I don't have brothers who look at me like, bro, there's no racism, man. Get over it. You don't think I have black and brown people who you cannot rely on? You don't think they be my biggest enemy? You don't think I get tired for the very people I'm exerting so much energy to fight to create a more fair system? Decolonizing? You don't think that I get tired by the very people I'm fighting to help, are the very people I'm almost fighting against, sometimes even more than white people themselves? But you have to understand that we, and I will put myself in there, are prisoners to a world that was kickstarted by imperialism. So we are trying to really get to the top of the pyramid and debunk the system. Because now once, let's use high school for example, once it isn't cool to wear expensive clothes, then the kid at the bottom who don't have the newest shoes every time they come out no longer feels like he's useless because he doesn't have it. You understand what I'm saying? Once we debunk that the whiter you are in your behavior, the more detached you are from your heritage, from where you come from, the more you attached you are to being from an ethnic group, the more you've westernized yourself, the more you've changed who you are, the more you subscribe to white supremacist ideologies. Once we debunk success being a pathway to success rather, and once we dismantle and tear that down, then you get black and brown people on the very bottom and in between that pyramid, understanding that I don't have to treat another black brother less or sister less. And I'm going to say it and to drop it in. I don't have to wear a weave in the office in order for my workmates, for me to come off as more professional. I don't have to wear Eurocentric beauty standards in order to be more beautiful. I don't have to only date and not find my own women attractive and only find white women attractive. All these things that destroyed us as people. Now, please hear me. Just because you're void of one area does not mean that you're void of all of the, I guess, the crippling mindsets of white supremacy. Some brothers like to date a black woman. Some brothers are married to a black woman. But him and his black woman are both selling out the community. Some would never date a black woman. So I just wanted to throw that point in there. And also to encourage everyone watching at home. Do not spend time hating your brother or sister. There is a system. And I'll say this story to sign off. There was one, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was saying about someone that she knew that was a big pandering to white people, and she was disgusted by them. And she was about to go to town on just insulting this person. And I said, hold on, sis. White society around him has told him that this is the best way to go about life. And yes, he doesn't have a big enough capacity to see, or brave enough, or call it what you will, to see outside of that. And to say, you know what? I don't care if I break all these social norm rules. It takes a brave heart. It takes a brave soul. So many times I have to forgive my brother or sister and know that it takes a brave soul. It takes a brave soul to see the other side, to say, to kind of care less about this prison in which we are all indoctrinated by. So that's all I have to say today. Please, there is nothing more dangerous than a black and brown person who understands that stepping on the next black and brown person will take me further up the ladder. It is not your brother or sister who is behind it, but the system itself. And once we focus our energy on dismantling the ideology, the system, even the social norms, then we create a new world. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And I'm on a mission for you.